We are recorded. Hey, Bruno, welcome to Syelo Tank. We're really excited to have you. And hi to all of the amazing Syelo members that are on this call today. Thank you for showing. It's very exciting Syelo Tank. We have an early stage startup called OnePlusOne, spearheaded by its founder, Bruno Kuna. Did I pronounce that correct, Bruno?
Close enough. Close enough. We'll take it.
All right. Thank you for the kindness. But we're very excited to have you, Bruno. So as you know, this is Silo Tank. For the next 40 minutes or 35, I should say, the show is yours. We're excited to see the product. We're excited to dive in. Why don't you formally introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll dive right into your product.
Awesome. Yeah. Happy to do that. So thanks so much for having me. To all the Silo community. I've chatted with a couple of you already, which is awesome to see some friendly faces here. Hopefully friendly. We'll see. But my goal here today, as Amir said, we're quite early stage compared to a lot of the products that have been showing to the Silo community. Um, but I really wanted this opportunity to chat with you because of multiple reasons. But to give you a bit of a background first on who am I and our team. So I worked in HR tech for a long time. I was at a company called Oyster HR from 20 to 700 people. And I got to see, I joined a company with no talent and got to see a fully resourced talent team, and then got to see a round of layoffs and working with a team, not a fully resourced talent team anymore. And so went through that whole process while at the same time, one of my closest friends and former coworker was also building another HR tech company called remote.com. He was one of the first 10 developers and was with a company to 1,500 people. And so last year, we got super curious and interested in AI agents. We all met, the two of us and my other co-founder, Afonso, we all met at an AI startup 10 years ago now. And so there is where we got to start working with AI, and even before open AI models existed. And during this last year, during the brainstorm session, we got super curious about building AI agents to support and most of all to empower talent teams. And so with that in mind, we decided to start building late last year. We quit our jobs and here we are. More than happy to walk through a presentation with a few more information, but that's sort of like the reason how it came to be. All right, I'm just going to share my screen then, and might be easier. All right, can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up would be awesome. Perfect. So yeah, so it kind of is on the tagline saying you're a recruiter assistant, but essentially what we're trying to do here is that our North Star is, and what we truly believe is that the best companies are built by the best teams. And to build the best teams, you fundamentally require the best recruiters working behind the scenes. But in a world where AI is changing how hiring works, talent teams are at a crossroads in a lot of ways, right? It's never been as easy for candidates to mass apply to dozens or even hundreds of jobs instantly, which clutters pipelines, and it's a big, overwhelming feeling for all of you. Resumes and interviews now are AI enhanced to the point that it's really hard to actually find the hidden gems within talent. And then the other side of the equation is that there's a lot of mass outreach and sourcing tools being built right now, which creates a lot of noise for candidates. Like I can tell you from my perspective, we're still in stealth mode. I'm based in San Francisco. By the way, happy to meet anyone for coffee in the city. And, I changed my location to San Francisco when I moved here from Vancouver and immediately got bombarded with multiple recruiter messages and these templates that I've seen on Ashby and Jen, for example, right? And that's really hard to stand out because if you're on the other end as a candidate as well, it's going to be super complicated to actually, distinguish and actually stand out when you have all these messages coming through. And then fundamentally, companies are moving fast, right? But hiring struggles to keep up because there's a lot of manual processes and a lot of manual decisions, a lot of button clicking, as some of the recruiters that I chat with mentioned, and so that costs top candidates. And fundamentally, what we truly believe and what we've seen from talking to everyone in the market is that your job has never been harder, but also has never been more valuable than now. And so when last year we were raising our pre-seed and we were building our thesis around what we wanted to build, we always had this core thesis, and I think every day we get clear validation that we're on the right direction, which is AI plus recruiters are TAs is more powerful than AI. And so this is because we believe that talent teams are a competitive advantage for companies that want to build the best teams. Because a lot of the people that I chat with, they complain a little bit of their management team or their C level suite that kind of sees talent as being a bit of a cost center, which becomes a little bit of a reactive work for a lot of you. But we know that great recruitment, the one you're doing, is about cutting through the noise. It's about identifying real talent. It's about selling candidates on the top jobs, and it's about creating authentic human connections. But there's a big problem with that, which is because of all the unexisting tools or the lack of or the manual process with the existing tools, it makes it really hard to do a big, great job in the area, especially as you're constantly doing tasks to do more with less. And so I don't know if you know this person here, Amir. Some of you might have heard of him, but he put very eloquently a week, 2 weeks ago on a LinkedIn post what essentially was our thesis when we were raising our pre-seed and talking to investors. All these VCs kind of wanted to, why you're not replacing recruiters, right? And our goal and what we've said so far is that we believe that ultra lean recruiting teams are a valuable competitive advantage for companies, and that's the ones that actually empower their recruiters are the ones that are actually going to build the best teams and hire the top talent. However, maybe these bloated big talent teams that we used to have with recruiter coordinators, with dedicated sources, with all these specified roles are starting to become a thing of the past, right? We've seen a lot of consolidation into what we call the full stack recruiter, and we've seen this across every industry, every department with AI. And so with this in mind, we're kind of thinking, so how can we help you do more with less? And our idea is to build these AI recruiter assistants that are conversational and they can actually embed in your workflows on a day-to-day to help you. So we started a few months ago, and because of that, we just decided to launch a very quick AI assistant that was just essentially join interviews to record, transcribe, generate structured summaries, and pre-fill scorecards so you can make faster and more confident hiring decisions. We got a quote here from Tony, not only a talent acquisition manager at ProKeep, but most importantly, a Syelo member on this call. And she kind of like puts into great perspective what we're trying to do, which is to essentially give you back time to be strategic, give you full attention to actually talk and build connections while also streamlining the note taking, right? And so this is essentially the first AI assistant that we decided to launch before we actually venture out to new assistants. And let me go here. Let me show a quick demo. If I need to change my screen here. All right. So the way the product looks today, which is quite simple, as I mentioned, we launched less than 2 months ago, is essentially a very simple plug and play to your existing calendar to actually get together and pretty much add the assistant to any interviews that you're going to have. And this way you can easily have the assistant on your interviews taking notes. And the way it looks today is that it joins the interview like this one here, and it will just take notes while in the background while you're chatting, right? And our idea is, how can we build this perspective and this summarization from a talent perspective, right? There's a lot of generalized meeting note takers that take notes, but they don't understand the context of what's happening, right? Tools like Fireflies or Fathom, for example, they just don't understand the context that it's a candidate and an interviewer and what's going on there. So that's been our main focus is how can you actually take advantage of the notes that we take right away to actually bring that information to the rest of the recruitment process and to chat with the hiring manager. So we have essentially a big picture that kind of like goes through a very quick TLDR of what's going on. And then you have key points that kind of bring, positive signs, bring concerns about the situation based on the candidate's experience and what you talk about. And so this is very helpful because it just kind of gets you a lot more information and sometimes uncovers areas where you might not even think about during the interview, right? And so it has all that information here. It also has next steps for you, so you can just understand what you need to do. In this case, there's a few concerns about the full experience from this candidate. So it might include a scheduling a follow-up call and also moving with the coding assessment to assess the technical skills, right? And then you also have the outline, which essentially breaks down the interview into areas, and you can also jump into the video to see it very quickly. You obviously have the transcript, and then you have a little bit more info. And then the other part that it's been quite helpful for our users have been the AI assistant here, where you can just have a very quick chat about these candidates within our interviews. And so you could just ask, for example, where's the candidate? Yeah, and you can just ask a few questions and kind of understand a lot of the things from the interview. And so this is very helpful if you want to go through like the 5-6 interviews that usually a candidate going through, and you just kind of want to have quick snippets of information, like what's the motivation about the candidate, what has the candidate said about selling expectations to other interviewers, and just have those ideas here. What's the ideal start date? Remind me of that, right? And so those are really information that you can have this conversation here. And we're soon launching this feature in Slack. So you can just have a conversation through there, and it's sort of like your own personal assistant that you can delegate information to. The other part that we're actually launching this Friday, it's going to be the question side, the templates. So you can just come here very quickly and add the questions from your scorecards, for example, and we can generate an answer very quickly. So this way, you have much better scorecard information from your candidates, and it's much easier for other interviewers to actually get good feedback instead of you chasing people down constantly to get feedback, and then usually the feedback is quite subpar. So that's sort of like what we've been working right now. This is a very simple demo just to show very quickly what we're up to. And now I also want to do something that it would be quite helpful for everyone here. As I mentioned, one of the big things on our end is that we want to make sure that we're building things that would help you on your day-to-day. Whenever I talk to talent teams, they always say that a lot of the software that's being built hasn't been built by talent teams, and you can tell, right? And we want to make sure that we don't fall into that fallacy. And so we want to make sure that we're in touch. And that was the big goal that I wanted to jump on this Syelo Tank, was to, get firsthand experience, feedback, anecdotal pain points and challenges from people like you that are on a day-to-day chatting with candidates and working with software. So I have it here, a very quick form that I'll just share very quickly on here on our conversation. It takes 2 seconds, 3 seconds to answer, and essentially just ask a couple questions on a few things that we're looking for, trying to figure out where to guide us with our next product. We're actually now building a few other AI recruiter assistants, and we would love your feedback and from your experience and pain points, where you see the most struggles and pain points and where we should actually put our efforts and time into it. So if you guys can go into that form very quickly and answer that would be awesome. And then finally, the other thing that I'll just leave here, obviously space and room for Q&A, and also a special offer. We just started getting our first paying customers. We're doing a very simple pricing as well. We're adding the ETS integration pretty soon. We're also adding voice notes pretty soon. So we would love to give an opportunity for the Syelo community to sign up. There's 14-day free trial, no card needed. Just email me and I can set you up and get your feedback. And then it's unlimited seats, so you can share across the whole organization, get the whole system of record from all the interviews that are going on in your organization, and get all that feedback and summarization internally. And then there's also a dedicated Slack channel with us, so you can just actually shape the product direction and the features on where we're headed. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bruno. We appreciate the demo and appreciate your thoughtfulness as you built your product. We're going to open it up to questions. What questions do all you wonderful folks have? Please feel free to jump in and go off mute.
And one quick question. You had mentioned in the intro part about candidates using AI in their interviews, making it harder to detect if someone actually has the skill set they say they have. Was there some type of feature or something you plan on rolling out in the future that will help tackle that?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So, and this is one of the reasons why I've sent you the form here as well. We've been hearing this from a few people that this has been a problem. Our idea and sort of like the thesis that we have is that we want to build these AI conversational agents that sit on top of your existing workflow. So they'll work essentially on top of your ATS and Slack. And so we might go in the direction of helping with that part. We do believe that a lot of the tools that we want to do want to help with managing the flood of inbound applications and also the rise of fake applications. So that's something that is definitely top of mind for us. We don't know if that's going to be the thing that we're going to focus right now, but that's something that we've been thinking about. And if you have any ideas, thoughts, or even feedback on that part, I would love to hear, James.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things we're looking for on top of just, underqualified candidates inflating their skills, but potentially bad actors and truly fake interviewers trying to get, proprietary information or as a way to fund the various activities, getting people work and having fake people do the work. So there's a lot of kind of crazy stuff going on right now. So being able to identify some of that information is definitely valuable. And it's something I'm looking at tools for right now.
Yeah. Yesterday I was chatting with a talent acquisition manager at 150-person company, and they're hiring remotely across the US. And so she says that she's jumped already in 2 or 3 calls where she was on the call and she could tell that was already a bad actor. There was a fake candidate there. And so it's a very weird world that we're headed in that direction. And that could be something that as soon as it starts to become a much bigger problem, which I think it will, then it's something that I definitely see ourselves dedicating efforts to.
Thank you.
Bruno, how would you say that you guys differentiate yourself from, say, a MetaView, who has a very similar product?
Yeah, great question. So the way MetaView, I think that if you look into the landscape of the industry, right, there's a lot of the generalized meeting note takers, as we mentioned, and then there's 2 purposes built for recruitment, which is BrightHire, which presented at the Silo community, and then there's MetaView. BrightHire is a lot more enterprise level type. There's a lot of like features around upskilling interviewers. There's a lot more about how to actually build and guide a fully completed interview plan and interview training within a company, right? Whereas MetaView is starting more similar to us, but is going in that direction. So their idea is to build this sort of like interview intelligence platform that actually builds more on the interviewer training, help you with the interview plan, helps you with even crafting the job description. I think they just launched that part. Whereas for us, the goal, and that's not how it looks like today, is to be sort of like a personal assistant too, where he sends the notes via Slack, you write back ideas, it sits on top of your ATS, and we want to make sure that by the summer, you don't even have to sign in to our platform. It just works on top of your ATS and Slack. So that's going to be that big differentiation for us, because I feel like, talent teams are completely full of tools right now, and there's so much tools to do this and that. And we kind of want to build something that sits on top of the existing workflows instead of being another web app. So that one is a big differentiation for us. And the other one is that we're building assistants to help throughout the whole hiring process. We're not just focused on the interview process. That's just where we started, but we're quickly going to be very differentiated from them.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm just gonna, Amir, there's a question here. If you don't mind, I'll answer that from Samin. It says about the context aware and yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that we've done, and like not to get into too technical or too deep into the situation, AI is great, but it's also very generalized. So what it means is that if you don't give it a good guardrails and direction, it kind of becomes a bit tricky to understand. It can be like very much like super wide and super broad and not give the actual direction that you want, right? This is why whenever you're writing on ChatGPT, writing a good prompt before you write whatever you want can immensely increase the value behind the output. And so two things here with Simin's question. One of them is that we actually work with a bunch of recruiters and talent teams to actually understand their way of looking at a recruiter phone screen, for example, understand how they would like to see notes from a candidate. So we try to mimic all those results within our own AI that sits on top of OpenAI and Claude. So because of that, we alternate between the two models depending how technical you are interview. Some interviews, because they go more into the weeds of the situation, Claude is actually better than ChatGPT. But then what we build on top has been all this significant prompting based on research that we've done with other interviewers. Because I worked at a company called Oyster, Dino worked at Remote, Afonso was a hiring manager at Shopify. We worked with a lot of their talent teams to actually craft the initial feedback and summarization to do that. That's why one of the things that came from it was sort of like areas of concern, areas of like that you should focus on and double down. That is something that we really wanted to build. The other part about the AI crossing into making recommendations, that is a very good question. And one of the things that we really want to make sure is that we're providing you guys the North Star in terms of where you want the ideal candidate. We're not making a decision on your behalf. A lot of the AI tools that we're competing with and we're soon going to be competing with is AI tools that are trying to replace the AI, the recruiter, and will be an AI recruiter interviewer. And we don't want to do that because we believe that AI is really good at doing a lot of things within its guardrails, but it's not good at assessing people with a fundamental judgment. And so we want to leave that part to the humans. Humans are not perfect as well, but it's sort of the what we have in that sense. And so we're making sure that our AI is never making recommendations. It will probably give you an assessment and sort of like, given your parameters on decisions, for example, here's a score, but you're making the decision. You're making the final call. We're never gonna we're gonna make that the AI do that for you. You're welcome.
Bruno, you had mentioned a little bit about your fundraising journey thus far. Can you speak to that? Tell me a little bit about how much you've raised, and are you currently fundraising? How much are you looking to raise, etc.?
Yeah, for sure. Also, I'll give you a piece of feedback, not a feedback, but just how disconnected from the day-to-day world of recruitment VCs are. I think that's also quite interesting. I think we went on a lot. So just to give you a little bit of background, 6 months ago, we raised 1.1 million. We raised our pre-seed. We raised from 3 great investors, 2 of them based in the Bay Area, the other one in Toronto. And it was very quick. It was super quick in every call that we jumped with VCs, the ones that got what we were building and the ones that just want to replace recruiters. And that was like a very like common theme with a lot of these VCs that kind of like regurgitate whatever people write on Twitter. And so I think that's quite interesting to see what a lot of people want to build these days is not getting funded because VCs are just very curious about eliminating job postings, right? And so I think that's something that I understand the frustration on your end because investors think like that. So it means that a lot of the founders are going to think like that. And it means that a lot of C-level executives are going to think like that. And so our fundraising journey happened somewhat fast. I think one of the big things that we had on this core thesis is that we're not replacing recruiters, we're empowering them. And so it became pretty simple to explain that immediately to VCs. And if you don't believe that, then we're not the company for you. And so that make it super simple for us. It also enabled us to move really fast because we were like, if you believe this, here we go. And here's what our thesis. And with that in mind, we got the process super quick with a lot of VCs. We heard a lot of no's, obviously. A lot of the people didn't want to even jump on an email on a call because they wanted us to replace recruiters. But that's sort of the fundraising journey. Right now we're not raising. What we're looking for is guidance, right? Is about feedback. Obviously we'll always take investment from strategic partners, especially like angel investments in the talent space, for example, or communities like Syelo, obviously. What we kind of want to be is like, we want to make sure we're in touch with people like you on a daily basis. That is sort of like whatever next fundraising happens or whatever like equity we're giving away is to people that are actually shaping the product that we're using on a day-to-day. That's the next goal for us.
Love it. Thank you. What I would be curious to hear about, right? $20 a month for 25 interviews, $100 a month for unlimited interviews. Whenever you fundraise, right? And you go to investors and you go to professional investors, VC specifically, you have to tell $1 billion story, right? Like that's the only way you're going to get funded. You're not going to go to a VC, a great VC, and say, hey, I've got a really great $20 million ARR business, $50 million ARR business. Please write me a check. They'll say, great lifestyle business, sir. Go have fun doing that. Not a fit for us. So I'd be curious to hear the $1 billion vision that you told your investors to pick up the 1.1 or 1.2 in venture funding that you've picked up. So tell us your $1 billion vision. Why is this a multi-billion-dollar company?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I like to bring back your post actually about this part, because this is where I essentially believe that the $1 billion vision comes to be. And this is what we sort of explained to the investors, is that we're arming ultra lean recruiting teams, probably teams of one in the future, with all these armies of agents that are taking over all the high volume repetitive tasks to make sure that talent teams can spend their time being proactive and actually spending their time on strategic work. And so we believe, and what we've seen in the market is that top talent operates in a different way from anything else. You might have a very structured interview process. You might have all these sort of like ideas of a role, but if you come around a top talent, rules change a lot of ways. And this is why we fundamentally believe that AI recruiters will never take on the top talent, because this top talent will always have another opportunity to join. So they would be like, why would I join AI interview or call phone screen when I can actually talk to a human and get a glimpse into the culture of a company and actually be sold on a role that makes sense? And so our vision has been our goal is to build this army of agents under one unified experience that work with recruiting teams to make sure that they spend their time on everything else that AI will never be good at, which is to build authentic human connections. And that is our North Star.
I guess the paradigm is, right? And this is what I struggle with as an investor, and I want to understand how you think about it. I agree, obviously, that there will be less recruiters doing more. Doesn't that kind of cannibalize your own ecosystem? So now in a world where, let's just make up random numbers, there's 1 million recruiters. I don't know if there's actually 1 million recruiters. Maybe there's more, maybe there's less. And now you think about your TAM, and you're like, okay, my TAM is there's 1 million recruiters out there that can all sell this to. Maybe I win 50% of them. Now there's 500,000 people that my product is going to work with and, ultimately dominate. In the world that we're living in, and you and I agree in, there maybe be 100,000 recruiters in the future, maybe less. And again, random numbers that we're making up here. So kind of curious, right? Like as the space gets smaller and as the professional recruiter diminishes and there's less of us, how does it scale? Do you just get more expensive? Is that your thought process? Oh, okay, today I'm $14.99. In the 5 years, Amir, when you're saying there'll only be 100,000 recruiters, I'll be $10,000 a year. Curious to hear how you thought about that.
Yeah, great question. Love it. And I've thought very long and hard on that question. And the first thing that I can tell you is that per seat based pricing is gonna die, and we're not even doing that on our end even. We kind of want to. I feel like AI is a great opportunity and a paradigm shift in how you think about TAM and how you think about revenue, because now you're not only arming one seat per company, and you're just trying to attract more and more people within the company to get more seats and to get more revenue, like an ATS does, right? Our goal is to align incentives with output. So what we'll see, and how our pricing is gonna continue to carry, is that we're aligned with hiring plans. So our agents are here to help you make the best hire, and we want to make the best hire as fast as possible with data to back it up. And so our plan will grow with the value that you have in actually hiring someone. That's where our agents will be involved with you. So it doesn't matter if it's just a one recruiting team. If you're building a team of 300 people, you're still going to have to hire those 289. And that's where our army of agents is going to bring, is there's the value there to help you hire those people without adding headcount and doing as quickly and as fast as possible, whereas a human could never do. So imagine a world where there's thousands of people applying to a job. Our AI will go through very quickly, assess, rank the best candidates, remove the bad actors, push through, schedules the first screenings with recruiters. You already have a lot more information at that point that ever existed. We're able to sift through the web and get a lot of these points, even give you signs like already we could do with our system that you require a visa sponsorship for someone to work in the US, and we could already detect that person is not even based in the US, given all the other social footprint that they have, for example. And so we'll just making sure that we pick those 1,000 candidates, we get to the recruiter side for a conversation where it can be a lot more about the intangibles, a lot more about the soft skills, not just about the laundry list of questions that you also need to ask. Those will be gone. And then you're just like going through this funnel much quicker, much swifter, and you're actually making the best hire, and you're actually evaluating that with time. The AI is learning with you who the best fits are for your company. You will be proactive about reaching out to those candidates. You will be understanding the ideal profile for you. And now you're actually jumping on a lot less phone screens. You're actually talking to a lot less candidates, but you're talking to the right ones. And the value is in removing all this work that you do of like jumping on calls and realizing that the candidate is not the right fit. And you're now spending 15 to 20 minutes with that candidate when you know in the first 2 minutes that it's not the one. Or you spend a whole day reviewing CVs with your hiring manager. Or you go through 6 rounds of interviews because you can't really make a confident hiring decision because you're still figuring out who the right person is for that right role. So you ended up just like having this bloated recruitment process with your team, right? And then those people are not doing a great job because they keep asking the same questions and there's no structure, right? So we're just like adding value to all of this where there's these recruiter assistants with you, trying to figure out the competencies that you're looking for, making sure that you're talking only to the qualified applicants that actually fit that role. And now it's about the culture fit, is about the intangibles. That's where we see the value. And so that value of hiring those people as fast as possible, there's a lot of money there because there's a lot of money that a hire brings to a company. And so that's where we see the value that we're bringing. So we'll probably be more like an outcome type based pricing in the future than anything else.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Folks, we have about a minute left before we flip it around. Any final questions for Bruno? The awkward silence. Let people sit in their own discomfort. All right, Bruno, this is where we open it up, man. What questions can we answer for you?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many, but thinking about the top of mind ones, I would love to know kind of like what's the biggest point for everyone that is here right now? Like what's been like the most annoying thing on your day-to-day that you wish you could fix in the hiring process? Feel free to write on the chat if it's easier as well.
I can jump in on that one. I'd say at least one of the most challenging things we face right now is the very high number of applications that we get and getting through those effectively. Luckily, there are more and more tools now to filter through those, and it makes it a bit faster. But I'd also love to see something that, as applicants are coming in, it notifies me when there's one that is a high match, so you can get to those people more quickly. Yeah, that's definitely a time suck, I would say.
Oh, I know.
I would identify sourcing, not just from my own perspective, but from what I've heard other talent leaders talk about. Sourcing is obviously a massive pain point. The problem that I've seen, however, from a lot of the tooling is that it's like the agentic sourcing isn't very good. There's so many nuances, right? Like to hiring for a recruiting manager. By that, I mean like someone I report to, a CTO, a VP of engineering, whoever. That like being able to create the right criteria, the right parameters for an AI agent to go out and effectively source without ultimately being very spammy. We haven't seen something actually come through that's tremendous or stupendous at that. I think obviously the technology just isn't there yet. And as time evolves, AI will get better and better and better and ultimately automate that task. But right now that's, a big pain point is the sourcing component, at least from what I've seen other leaders talk about and just my own experience as well.
Something that we struggle with is all of the tools that are out there. There's so many good tools, but they're all separate. Nothing is your all-in-one, and it's trying to stack and stack and stack. And so, they don't integrate seamlessly. You can integrate with some you have to log into on their own. And so there's no, sourcing and candidate database and outreach tool and, ATS and AI note taker and all of these things pulled together into one that do it well. And so it's a lot of separate tools that are just trying to play well together. And nobody has put something together that is the all-in-one that we would need, or that can play well with everything, just because of how things integrate. And so it's hard to have to go and source tools and then use them separately, but try to bring everything together.
Yeah.
Bruno, Samin wrote, honestly, a lot of these tools seem optimized for high volume hiring, but in startups like ours, the challenge is different. We're often doing niche specialized hiring. I don't want my sourcing automated because it needs the human judgment. For us, the biggest pain point isn't just efficiency, it's driving deeper stakeholder involvement and alignment throughout the interview process. That's actually great.
That's a great call. And it is very different, right? Because there's also like this problem with a lot of these tools that they're trying to build for where you can get more revenue, more money, right? And so like when these big companies with high volume hiring have a very different type of hiring process than smaller, nimbler tech teams that have a much higher bar. And it's about like building stronger relationships and figuring out the best candidates and willing to wait for that great candidate instead of just like keep rotating through a bunch of candidates, right? I have another question. Amir, you asked me the question where you see the future of my tool and the AI and recruitment space. I would love to ask that question back to you and into the room. Where do you see the future of AI in talent acquisition?
Obviously, this is something I spend a lot of time thinking about, but I want other folks to go first, and then I'm happy to jump in. So I'll stay silent for now.
I'm with Samin on the efficiency piece. Like, help me be more efficient. Help me schedule easier. Looking at schedules and trying to get people on calendars, especially for panel interviews and final interviews and presentations, is a huge time suck. Especially when you're a team of one. Trying to rearrange calendars is huge. So anything that can help us to be more efficient and save time is going to be the big thing. I don't need something to do the sourcing for me. Like this means that I want to be able to get eyes on things. But if there's any way to help be more efficient with what I'm already doing, that would be fantastic across the board.
And I would add, especially with those more manual tasks that don't need a high degree of like human interaction, like an AI assistant, I think is in scheduling is a great place that a tool like that can really take over a lot of the job and be very impactful.
I'm going to go off mute here. I think for us, and what I've seen in recruiting, I think AI is going to help not just with efficiency, but keeping everything related to the role top of mind. I think where a lot of recruiting loses pace is stakeholders just taking too long to make a decision or missing some information. And usually it's in there somewhere in the process. So I think the AI would bring those important things to the forefront and help us remember, what are we exactly hiring for? What was the point of all this? And just put it all in one place for us.
I like that.
Yeah, I think it's for me personally, when I think about it from like the silo landscape of things that we want to bet on and things that we really believe in, or at least want to believe in. I don't think the future is completely crystal clear yet in terms of what tools are going to be the ultimate winners. I think obviously a lot has been said in AI and the emergence of AI and where it can go, but the potential hasn't been maximized yet. There's a couple of key thoughts, though, of how I operate and how I think about the space. And one, I actually have to give credit to Steve Mayer because he influenced my opinion on something pretty tremendously. I asked Steve, I was like, Steve, who's on the call right above me. I asked Steve, I was like, Steve, why has no single ATS ever won? Right? Like, why is it that these ATSs all fundamentally do the same exact thing? They move a candidate through an interviewing process and you track them. This isn't a revolutionary concept. The UX, the user experience, isn't revolutionary. Why is it that there's a world where you can have 3 players, I won't name them by name, that all kind of do the same thing, that all kind of function in the exact same way, but there's different nuances to each via user interface or features that they offer. So then all of a sudden what you have are these like loyalists to the brand. I'm this person, I use this product, I hate the other. Like, why is it that this is a world that we live in? Why isn't there a LinkedIn of ATSs that just owns and dominates the space and that we all use? And Steve said something to me very interesting. He said, well, when you think about how quickly tech companies especially evolve and the needs of these software companies change as time changes, the software, these monolithic softwares that are built like these ATSs aren't able to modernize quickly enough to keep up with newer startups and the way that they hire and the needs that they have. That's why every 10 to 15 years, you see a new ATS come and be the darling. I remember, I can't believe I'm saying this, I remember when Greenhouse was the darling. Everyone loved Greenhouse. They were, oh my gosh, Greenhouse, the saviors of all ATSs. And now there's a new player in the space that everyone's saying that about, right? So when I think about, products, I think a lot of what the success we've seen on the product side right now in the space, and I'm thinking of companies like Bright Hire, who you mentioned, and even Ashby, what they've really done is they've built fan bases, right? They've built a demographic of people that are advocates for them. And I think any product in the future that wants to be successful is going to have to think about that from a multi-approach perspective. How do I create true fans? How do I create people that really love my product? And then how do I create and innovate consistently enough so that as the needs of companies change, my product changes with them so I don't become this monolith that eventually becomes the old software or the old solution in the room. So I think of micro solutions. I think the future of TA are a bunch of products that recruiter leaders like, they add to their tool belt. They say, like, just like a construction worker says, this is my favorite type of hammer, this is my favorite type of saw, even though the saws all do the same thing, the hammers do all the same thing. I think the future of TA looks a lot like that when it comes to tooling. And the tools that will win will be the tools that optimize for relationships and optimize for fanhood. Create true fans. Create people that are willing to post about you just because they like your product so much, which we've seen start happening in the space.
Love that.
And the only thing I'd add to that, Amir, is the reality is companies, as they get more mature in that ATS structure, start chasing the monolith companies because they want the bigger ARR, which then forces them to not innovate, because once you get into a big company, they don't want you fucking innovating and changing their process because they're too big. And so that it creates this automatic disconnect that always happens with the startup universe and the more nimble, not startup only, but smaller size companies of the greenhouses and what have you, where they're all flexible at the front end and they work with everybody and it works for everyone. But as they start chasing the bigger dogs, they get pulled into, they can't change things anymore. And so it creates this like catch-22 that you could have been the darling, but you're never going to be the darling again once you get past that, once you go after the enterprise deals.
Yeah, that's so true. And it feels like on the ATS part, a lot of them missed the final wave, right? Like Amir saying, they were the darling for 5, 6 years, and then another came in and took that, rode that wave better. And so I remember before even Greenhouse, Lever was the big deal as well. And so it's kind of hard because if you don't innovate very quickly, it feels like you have a short window of like 6, 7 years to do it. And tools like BrightHire and Ashby were all built in 2019, right? So they're coming to that moment where it's like make or break. It feels like for a lot of them, so it's quite interesting.
And then Bruno, the other thing I would add is my vision of where I would like, and this is worth about the $15 I probably paid for a bottle of wine. Is it's going to become more where ATSs are going to be truly talent products for a company as opposed to just the outreach and the external candidate. Because I think more and more we're going to have, and we talked about this on our call yesterday, skill gaps as AI starts to eliminate entry and mid-level roles. You're going to get bigger skill gaps in companies, and they're going to look for how do we repurpose our current employees? How do we move people that are already cultural fits? And then how do we supplement that with external talent? And the Workday tool should be the fucking be all and end all for that because it has all the information. And if anyone here is on Workday, I'm so sorry. And I will send you a bottle of wine because it is the worst shit you've ever dealt with. And so when it comes to an ATF, other parts are not bad. But the reality is like nothing is solving that piece. And eventually that's going to be a problem that companies at all sizes are going to need and at different levels of expertise and complexity. But I think that total talent management is where our whole role is going to steer to much more than it has in the past of just external. And of course, we've had this internal talent and people have been playing in both camps a bit, but it's going to really become just in my 2 cents is that's where we're going in 5 years, 7 years from now, where you're just not going to have anyone that does just external anymore.
Very interesting.
Bruno, maybe time for one more question, or we can go to the last part of Syelo, the Syelo Tank experience.
Yeah, let me just ask a quick question and play a little bit of the devil's advocate, right? Like, where do you ever see a future where you'll use AI interviewers for a few of your roles? Like Samin mentioned, like when you're doing a lot more like niche roles, you'll probably spend a lot more attention to that. But then, for example, for roles like entry level, like SDRs or entry level software engineers, where there's not a lot that you can evaluate there on the talent on a candidate, right? I would love to have an idea. What do you guys think of that? Because there's a lot of companies building that right now.
I agree with Cody. I'm not a fan of AI interviews. I think at some point they may get to a place to where it's a viable option, but I think having that interaction with a person where you can ask about the culture of the company, specific questions about their experience working there, that an AI tool just really can't emulate. And yeah, it just feels very disconnected to me. It's not something I'd be a fan of.
Yeah.
AI infused
I can definitely
with a human.
I can definitely see it doing more pre-interview, like where it does some sort of pre-setup and really gets the candidates geared up and it more as a setup, but it also helps the interviewers be prepped. And it's already doing that a little bit, but even more like in a way that feels very personalized, because obviously that's one of the beauties of AI is you can do that. But I'm with James, not actually fully pulling the trigger. That's too Terminator-esque for me.
On one end, like I was having a conversation with another Syelo advisor, and he said something to me that really, Gary Michaels is his name, and he said something to me that really shocked me, but it spoke profoundly true. He has a 16-year-old daughter, and she's interviewing for her first job, and she's interviewing at McDonald's. And she went, and the very first step was an AI interview, automated interview. And Gary, being, a world-class recruiter, was like, oh my gosh, what was that experience like? You must have hated it. And his daughter was like, no, I absolutely loved it. It wasn't intimidating. I wasn't scared. It felt like I could retake a question. Like if I wanted to like restart the question and you ask me again, I could do like redos. And that fundamentally changed my perspective, because I was always of the camp of like, I don't like the idea of an AI interview. But what I realized was there's this new generation coming, and this is what Gary and I were riffing on. There's this new generation coming. They're not as I don't know, I'm not going to be the old man shaking my fist. They don't mind doing interviews in front of a computer. They might actually even prefer it, simply because of the nature in which they socially engage today, which is predominantly over the internet and on social applications. So I do think that the trend to AI interviews is going to ultimately take over, not because I think recruiters love that and we want that, but because I think more and more job seekers are actually going to be pretty A-okay and maybe even prefer it. And they become the tastemakers in the future. That junior SDR eventually becomes the head of sales at a company in 10 years. And now they're the ones saying, yeah, what's wrong with an AI interview? I did one, so why couldn't my new SDRs do one as well? But to everyone else's point, there is, even with an SDR role, I have to be able to gauge whether or not you have the personality to sell. And I don't know how AI does that right now, unless I watch the video. And either way, though, I'm investing time watching the video and engaging with the video. So why not just be there myself? But yeah, AI interviews, especially if you're building a warehouse and you need massive amounts of hiring and you just need to screen for basic essentials. Why not?
Yeah, separating the knowledge workers from like retail types, like you mentioned, McDonald's types, like that. That is a big difference. I do agree with that part.
All right, folks. This is the moment. So we decided to change it up a little bit. We're going to ask one question. Please put yes or no in the chat box currently. So the question that we're going to ask is either today or in the immediate future, will you be contacting Bruno to buy his product? Yes or no? Or in the near future? Point being, would you take time to shop and buy this product? Yes or no? Bruno, you did a great job, man. Very good. Super happy to hear that. Congratulations on building something that people actually want. I'm not going to call out anyone. There's some tough cookies in this room that don't usually give a yes, and they gave a yes to you today. So for that, I applaud you. Thank you for spending time with us today. Would love to continue the conversation. Sabrina and I will reach out, but thank you for showing us your product. Congratulations on what you built so far. Looking forward to seeing where this goes.
Thank you so much for taking the time. This was very, very helpful for us and for me especially. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.